Today you're going to get back your bag of shapes, and today you're going to turn those shapes into a dinosaur. Now, even though we all have the same shapes, our dinosaurs should hopefully be very different depending upon how we arrange our shapes. You do not need to use every single shape. In fact, I would not use every single shape. What I would do is, first of all, look for that really big oval, and that should probably be your dinosaur's body. Now, you could have a dinosaur that kind of stands up on its back 2 legs like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, or you could have one that stands on all 4 legs. You can use your oval kind of in different ways. You have some different shapes that could become like your tail, or if you want to have a long neck dinosaur, that could even be like the long neck, and maybe you have a tail. You're going to kind of work together or kind of work to see what shapes in your bag you guys can use to create a dinosaur that you like. You are also able to cut your shapes. So I could use my shapes, like for my Tyrannosaurus Rex, usually the back legs are kind of big and the front arms are a little bit smaller. So if I need to take a paper and cut my arms to be a little bit skinnier, I could cut shapes in half. And that might give me a little bit better of a size for kind of what I am going for. I could even change the details on the back, and I could take one of my little circles and cut that in half to give me 2 semicircles. And that might make some nice details that could go along the back of your dinosaur. So any shape that you guys have in your bag, you are welcome to cut it to make it smaller or to change that shape. Something else you could use is the scrap box. So sometimes kids look in their scrap box and they find like a good shape. Maybe instead of rectangular arms, I kind of want ones that are a little bit skinny. I could take this little scrap piece and cut this scrap piece to become an arm if I want something even skinnier. So don't be afraid to look in the scrap box. You might find things like spikes or necks or other things in the scrap box that you could also use. Once I have a dinosaur that I think that I like, there are a couple extra small details we can do to add things like eyes or teeth or claws. We don't want to draw anything on. We want to do it all through cutting. So if I take my head, you can use the letter V or kind of like triangles to cut things very simply. If you want to draw it first, you can, but if I draw kind of like a sideways V or like a greater than or less than sign, that is a space that I can then cut out of my dinosaur, and that's like its mouth is open, okay? Now, if I want it to look like he has teeth, I can do the same thing, but I just, instead of gluing on lots of tiny teeth, I'm just gonna cut them out of here. So I would just start by cutting kind of a little ways, and then I just turn back my scissors the other way to make it look like a triangle. And when I cut, that piece kind of pops out. And I can do that a couple times, kind of one way, back the other way, and it gives it kind of this zigzaggy edge that makes it look like it has teeth. So if you wanted to cut some little teeth into your dinosaur, cutting that big V first and then cutting lots of little triangles out, that is really, really helpful. If I want to give the appearance that my leg has like claws coming out, I can do the same thing. Along that bottom edge, it's kind of like I'm cutting a V. So I cut kind of diagonally one way, then I just turn my scissors and I make it touch that line that I already cut to get these tiny little triangles to pop out. So instead of having to glue lots of teeny tiny triangles on, I just cut them out of my shape. If you want to add on an eye, it's kind of hard to cut something out of the middle. So if you want to add an eye into your dinosaur, we can actually use a hole puncher. Remember that my dinosaur is a dinosaur that we're seeing from the side, so I would only see one eye. So I'm just gonna slide this in, find a good space, not too close to the edge, make sure it gets all the way in, and I just squeeze the handle, and it kind of pops that little eye out for me. So if you want to add an eye, that's an easy way to add a little detail there. Whenever you have your dinosaur kind of cut and all the details are ready, then it is time to glue it onto a bigger paper so that it can stay together. I'm going to try to leave my dinosaur mostly set up so I can kind of sort of see where I want the pieces to go, but I would start by gluing down your body first. That probably makes the most sense. So when I get my paper, I'm going to put glue stick all over the back of my body shape. I want to use a lot. I shouldn't see big chunks. It should be nice and smooth, but I don't want it to come up, so I'm going to make sure I really get it nice and gluey. And then I will stick it onto my paper, and I will make sure that I kind of rub it so that it is flat. And I will just keep on working, going one piece at a time, getting my body kind of glued together so that it is exactly the way that I would like it to be. If you're gluing a detail that's kind of small, like lots of spikes along the back, if you want to, you can kind of spread a thin layer of glue on the paper itself. It should dry pretty clear, but it might be a little bit easier than having to glue down lots of individual tiny little spikes and things. Whenever you're done gluing your dinosaur together, we're going to actually do two different things, one on the front and one on the back, to bring out some of the texture. On the back of your dinosaur, you are going to use a black crayon to do a texture rubbing to see if we can get those shapes to kind of magically appear. When we do this, we don't color on the tip. Our crayon has got to lay down nice and flat. So we're going to keep our crayon flat, kind of push or kind of pinch our fingers together, and we just pull and push, pull and push. And I'm trying to pull and push kind of where I can feel that my dinosaur shapes are. I can see now kind of those little back details. The harder that I push, the better I can see. I can find kind of my legs are over here, it feels like, and my tail. And I'm gonna keep on kind of rubbing my crayon until I kind of find all of those details. There's one of my arms. My other arm is right there. Looks like my tail comes a little bit further this way. All the way out to the very end. There we go. And I will just keep on kind of rubbing until I get all of those details to show up. Once I have done my rubbing on the blank side with black crayon, then I am going to flip it over. And on the side where my actual paper and shapes are, I'm going to choose one color of oil pastel. And with that one color, I am going to, again, use it like a texture rubbing crayon. I want it to be flat on its side. And I don't want to push super hard. I'm going to push gently, trying to keep this only on my shapes and not kind of in that background. I'm just going to add a little bit of color. And again, I'm really pushing very gently this time because I kind of want some of that blue paper to still show through. So I'm just taking my pastel and kind of just rubbing it nicely, trying to get a little bit of extra color on kind of all of those shapes. If you get some in the background, not a big deal. Again, this should not be super hard. I kind of want to push a little bit more gently this time so I can see that really neat texture showing through.